Hey puzzlers, this is Steve here with another video on how to play some logic puzzles. This one's on trees and tents, also known as a campsite puzzle. I really like the theme of this one. A lot of puzzles don't have any themes, but not this one. This was definitely one of those very thematic logic puzzles. The rules state that you must find the location of all the tents. A tent belongs to one cell and is orthogonally adjacent to a tree, and each tree may only have one tent. The numbers outside the grid indicate how many tents are in that row or column. And lastly, no tent may be adjacent orthogonally or diagonally to any other tent. So that's it for the rules. What I'm going to go ahead and do is try to solve this puzzle for you guys, and so you can see how it unravels and hopefully see how some of the tips and tricks work together to make it easier to solve. So the first place that I typically start is going to be trees that are going to be surrounded or constrained, those in the corner or those that have a lot of other trees around them. And so for instance, if we look at this tree here marked by a T, a tent is going to have to be in only one of these two cells. And either way you put it, this cell is always going to be adjacent to it. So we could actually X that cell out knowing that a tent does not belong there. So that helps give us an extra clue for this tree here. And unfortunately for this puzzle, that's really it for the corners. You can see these two, this tree is constrained as well with just these two, so we could X that out. But this doesn't help us because this couldn't be a tent no matter what, because there's no tree orthogonally next to it. So I'm not even going to bother by marking an X there. Same thing with like a cell here or here or here. None of these could be a tent because there's no tree next to it to attach to. So that's it for my first tip. The next thing I would say is look for large numbered clues in rows or columns that have limited possibilities. So if we look at this 3, for instance, it might seem like there's a lot of spots for tents, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. But remember, you can't have tents next to each other. So that brings me to my next clue, which is you're going to count the dominoes rather than the cells. So there could be at most one here, one in these two cells, right? Because you could have one here and one there, but you can't have both because they're next to each other. So you could, again, one here, one there, and one there, right? Or here. So at most, there's 4 possibilities. One of these two, this one, and then this one. Because if you have one here, you can't have one here, right? The domino. So if we count 1, 2, 3, right? So there's 1 domino here, 2 dominoes here, and then 1 standalone cell. So this is the row that I would start on. Because there's only 1 domino here, 1 domino there, you know that this one is forced. So a tent has to go there. And that tent is going to be attached to this tree. And so we can let's color in that tent. We know that that tent belongs there. And then because we know that there's going to be a tent in one of these dominoes, it has to be here because it can't be adjacent here. All the cells around this tent can be X'd out because we know no 2 tents can be adjacent to one another. So that forces this one. And again, we can color all of those. This tent belongs to this tree, so we can color that in. And then there's going to be 1 tent here. Now we don't know which one yet, and we don't know which tree it belongs to, but we know it's one of these 2, and because it's one of those 2, this is an overlapping adjacent cell, right? Because if it's here, that's an adjacent cell. If it's here, that's a diagonal cell. So we can actually X that one out. I think that's it for this clue now. But going back to my first clue, looking for trees that are surrounded, this tree is surrounded. It can't have a tent up here, can't have a tent there, can't have a tent here since there's another tree. So that forces one here. Because tents can't be diagonal from trees, they have to be orthogonally adjacent. So that forces that one. And that tree that tent belongs to this tree. So we can color that in. Oops, let's make it the same gray. There we go. And then again, we can mark X's all around that. here's a surrounded tree, right? Can't go here, here, here. So that forces the tent there. We can X all of the surrounding cells. This tent does have a tree that it belongs to, so I'm going to color that in. This is another tree that's surrounded. Can't go left or up, can't go right because that's the edge of the board. So we can color that one in. And then again, X out all of the adjacent ones. Now this tree is surrounded on all sides except for one cell. So that is forced. We can X those. That tent has a tree that it belongs to, which is there. This tree has two possibilities. So we don't know that one yet. Now this one, and we do know that this cell can't have a tent because again, that's adjacent to both of these, but there's no tree that a tent could attach there anyway, so I'm not going to bother marking it. Now this one though, this is helpful because these, right, this tree here can only have a tent here or here. And in both cases, this cell is going to be X'd out because that's adjacent to both of those cells. And then that forces this tree here to have a tent either there or there. So either way, that is going to be X'd out. Not sure if that helped us a ton, but we could do it here as well. So anytime you have two out of the four options available next to each other like this, you can automatically X out the the diagonal one. All right. So let's look at this 3. We have 1 already, so we need 2 more. And there's only 2 spots a tent can go, here or here. So we need both of those to be a tent. So that's a tent that belongs to that tree. And this tent, now we don't know which tree that tent belongs to, and that is okay. So let me reiterate that. You can find the location of a tent without knowing which tree it belongs to, and that's okay. You can figure that out later, but we can X those out. And actually, I think we just did. So because we X'd out that spot, this tree has to have that tent attached to it because that's the only spot it can go. It can't go in any of these spots. So this, again, this belongs to that tree. So we figure that out. This is now forced to have a tree down here because this tent, I'm getting the tents and trees mixed up, is the alliteration. So this tent belongs to that tree. This tree does not have a tent, and therefore this is forced to be a tent because it can't have one here, can't have one there. This one does not belong to it, therefore that's the only spot available. That's that. We can X all of these out. This tree is now forced to have a tent there. This tree is now forced to have a tent there. And now this tent is forced to have a tree down there. Because again, we run into that same problem where this tent only belongs to one tree. And that's the one to the right of it. This doesn't have any open spots except for the one below it. And that forces this one to have one below it because again, can't go left, can't go right. This doesn't belong to this one because it belongs to the tree above it. So this tree has one down there. You know, and if you wanted to, you could color it. Let's say, I don't know, if you really wanted to get, you can make it red like that, and that way, you don't get confused. But I'll maybe do that at the end. Or here's what we can do: we can create a walled off area. I don't know, maybe that's not very visible. Yeah, I know that. Ooh, what am I doing? That didn't really work too well. All right, so this, we have to surround the tents, right? We can't have another tent next to these. So we can put X's all around there. This tent is now forced, or I'm sorry, I keep saying it. This tree is forced to have a tent attached to it there. That can't be a tent. This tree is forced to have a tent down there, like that. And if we think about this row here, right, because this tree can have a tent here or here, but it's going to have to go down here because there has to be 3 tents in this row, and we only have 2. That's the last spot for it, so it has to go there. And then this tree is forced to have a tent attached to it above, like that. This tree is forced to have one there. And that solves this 3 now. We have 1, 2, 3 tents. So we could actually put X's there and there. So that forces this tree to have one down there because it's surrounded. That forces this tree to have one there. So let's color those. This top row needs to have 2. There's only 1 spot left, so that belongs to this T, like that. This column has to have 3. This tent belongs to that tree. That tent belongs to that tree. This tree has to have a tent there, like that. And we're almost done. Hoping my newborn baby does not wake up before I finish. Trying to get this done quickly. This row here has to have 2, so that goes there. That tree is solved, and I think that is it. I think that's the solution. And let's check. So this row has to have 2, 1, 2. This has 3, 1, 2, 3. This has 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3. There's 3, 2. There's 2, 3, 2, 2, and 3. So all the rows are good. The columns, I'm guessing, is the same. Let me just double check. Looks good to me. And so that is how you solve a campsite puzzle, or a trees and tents puzzle, or just tents for short, however you want to say it. And again, it might look a little confusing at first glance, but each tree has 1 tent attached to it. And again, if you really wanted to get, you know, you could do something like this where, you know, each one has a unique color. But again, I'm a little short on time today, as I'm filming this during my newborn baby's nap. But you know, it's the tent has a unique tree. So anyways, that's it, guys. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.